So welcome to Boxing Media Hub, and you are with me and Simon the day after the night before. It's kind of one of those situations. Usyk Dubois, obviously last night in Poland. Yeah. A fight that Dubois sort of turned up in, that people thought more than he would have done. And did we see weakness in Usyk? I think that's the big thing as well that's come out of it. Probably his biggest test to date in regards to Dubois using his strength and his power. And yeah, low blow or robbed, I think, is what comes out of yesterday's fight. I think that's the main thing, isn't it, Simon? To be perfectly honest, I think it's all about the situation that came from it. Obviously, I think it was in round 5. Dubois landed a shot. I think it's the best way to describe it. A race around the waistband area. I've seen different angles. I'm sure you've seen different angles as well, Simon. I think different angles have been shot around the world from every possible angle. Where did the shot land? Now, a lot of people have said predominantly it was lower than higher, but you know, I think the ref, he's there, he saw the shot, he made the decision on the spot, and that's the decision he made, that it was a low shot. There was obviously caution there, but there was no point deducted. Usyk had you have a 5 minute time to get back, to which he used the time, which he's allowed to. And that kind of leaves us in this grey area now, doesn't it? A lot of people, I was listening to TalkSport, what the guys were saying this morning. Very mixed opinion. But where do you sit on this one, Simon? As I say, Dubois has kind of come out of this in a better position than what everyone thought prior to this fight. And Usyk, by some people, looked at as a bit of a cheat, which I don't know whether that's a fair shout, but
I think, Joel, one. Yeah, look, my opinion here, Joe, is I think Dubois, look, he won that fight. As far as I'm concerned, I felt that, look, it might have been a blow that was low, but for me, Usyk's lost that fight and he has been robbed. When you look at this, there's a couple of views which, yes, are a bit questionable. But there's one view, which is, for me, absolutely carte blanche. That guy has absolutely punched him in the stomach. Yep. And that punch is coming, for me, level with the navel. Now, looking into it, I think there's been a couple of people like Tony Bellew put a tweet out today circling the navel. During that fight, you do not see his belly button. And then when that fight was won, the shorts have come down. Those shorts have been pulled up. Yep, I appreciate that. It's gamesmanship. But that punch hit him slap bang in the stomach. It weren't anywhere lower than that. That was a legitimate punch. The referee has missed it. Look, I can understand the referee missing it. There's punches and stuff that I don't see there that quick. My goodness, that winning jab was absolutely lightning fast.
Yeah, so, it was pristine, wasn't it?
It was incredible jab. I think the problem with Dubois was that he defended every jab with his face, and that probably is what cost him the game in the end. But, for me here, Usyk, it was a TKO, gut punch. He got there. It was a loss. For me, he lost it. An absolute, unexpected loss. I think, however, I've been hearing that as well. Is Usyk isn't a cheat, but I'll tell you what he is. He's used absolute gamesmanship and what he can to make that situation the best as he can. The referee didn't call it, so therefore you dealt with, you go with the hand that you've been dealt with. He took the 4 minutes, whatever he did to recover, which he's allowed to do, and he got back in the fight. At the end of the day here, I don't feel as hard on Usyk as other people do, because do you know what? Where was Dubois in the rest of round 5 or 6 following up on that? He switched off. He should have gone for the kill. Usyk was on the ropes to a certain extent, metaphorically speaking, but he let him back in the game, and then he got clocked later on. I think, Dubois, for me, it's a missed opportunity, but he's put himself back into contention in that heavyweight division. He hasn't really fought, in my mind, anybody, a real grade A opponent. He comes up against Usyk, and he absolutely does a fantastic job and held him in high esteem. And for me, I think there is credence there that there has to be a rematch. At the very least, Dubois can say with legitimate gripe he's been robbed, and I think that's absolutely valid. And for me, Usyk should be putting it right. Usyk was the better fighter. He's always going to win on points. But Dubois was the first heavyweight who's actually gone after him. And I think what's interesting...
Used the heavyweight capability. I think this is the thing. We look at these fighters, don't we? And Derek kind of, although we thought he was kind of the test to date, but actually Usyk said, look, I sucked him in because I wanted AJ. I wanted to show that I didn't look like this is the type of guy that he is. He knows what he's doing. He's a clever guy. In and out the ring, he's a master of what he does, and this is. But my only gripe last night, same as you, Simon. If your guy's gone down, we'll look at it at different angles. But if your guy's gone down, you haven't hit him in the nuts in the nicest possible way, but you've hurt him. You've hurt him. As soon as that guy gets up, you go for the jugular. But it might be inexperience. And it probably is, but because I think if you were a Joshua or anyone else in that situation, a Fury, whoever, I think you'd go for the jugular because you'd think this guy hasn't been hurt before. I've got to lay this on him now. This is the time to win this fight because over the rounds you can't let Usyk come back into a fight. You can't.
Could you imagine Wilder stepping off back there if he was in that situation?
It'd pummel you. It'd pummel you.
But I think what's interesting here, Joel, and this is another thing as well, is this. I think Usyk has got a glass breadbasket because, upon looking on Twitter and some other things there, this happened in the AJ fight, and incidentally with the same ref. And when Usyk gets thumped in the stomach, he goes down and he feigns a low blow. And that is very difficult to, as I feel, as a referee, to make that judgment. It's a bit like in football where you've got somebody who's that master of diving, but there's just enough there, happens in the blink of an eye, and you give the free kick or the penalty.
Yeah, because they play it so well.
And I've seen Usyk now. There's a fight before he obviously, they're going back a few years against another opponent where the same thing happened. And I saw that today on Twitter. Or X, as I should say. And then there was another comparison with the same thing happening on the AJ fight. And again, a low blow, both these two other occasions, this now is the third occasion, when there is a blow into his belly, that absolutely clocks him. He goes down and he's feigned a low blow. When both times, they're at best for me borderline. But I look at that one now, shorts are pulled up. Yep. I know that there's no flesh and you've got the navel. We can't see the navel. But if you kind of take away and look behind the belt, that is holding his trunks up, and you look at where that glove goes into his body, it goes slap bang into his gut, into his navel, into his belly button. For me, that's a legitimate punch. Yep. It might be a low punch, but it's not an illegal punch. And I think he's been robbed.
See, the other angle we look at this, and this came through TalkSport as well, if the ref, and this is all about the if whats and the buts and the maybes, isn't it? But if the ref had counted, would Usyk have got up? And this is the grey area that that's gonna sit now, because a lot of people have said, did he go down knowing he felt that power? And I'm not saying he has, but if he's gone down feeling that power and gone, he sat there for a while looking at that ref thinking, if I get the disqualification here, I win.
Yeah. And do you know what, Joe?
That's going round, isn't it? In the world of Twitter and whatever.
So for me here, I think we've got to look at the context of the fight. And the context of the fight here is this is a close homecoming fight he is going to get. You know, we're 2 hours, 3 hours away from the Ukrainian border. A lot of Ukrainian expats and people have come over to give him that support. Yet Usyk, one, doesn't want to lose, and two, you know, if it was a step, if he started counting, for me, Usyk gets back up, and then effectively we see him on the defensive for the next, couple of rounds until he can gain his composure.
There was 2.5 minutes left.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
This is what baffles me with Dubois.
This is the thing. This is the thing here. This is the thing here where actually, look, I've got a certain view, and that view is, look, I think in the grand scheme of things, Dubois was robbed because that should have been a count, and from the looks of it, Usyk hasn't come up straight away. But then let's put it into a thing. If there was a count, would Usyk come up? Yes. There's no way he is going to want to lose to Dubois on his home patch in his homecoming backyard. He's a warrior. He would have got up, and let's be honest, he could have danced his way round and kept himself out of trouble until he felt he recovered. So do I think Usyk would have DQ'd? No, he's not going to want to win the title on a DQ in front of his homeland and his people. However, this is where it comes back to me is, look, there's been an issue there. That's been missed. But whether or not that's been missed, the blow was still dealt with, and there was still a good round and a half where Usyk was wobbly and it was not capitalised on whatsoever. And unfortunately, if I'm Dubois, it is very, very much not bittersweet, but sweet bitter. It's sweet that you got the knockdown, and you probably should have, in the grand scheme of things, had the title given to you. But bitter because you're going to have that regret because you did not follow it up and take advantage of it. And at that division, look, I don't care if you're 25. You've got 5 belts on the line. What are you doing? And I've got to say this as well, Joe. I really like Dubois and what he did there. He took Usyk further than probably what anyone else has in the heavyweight, further than Chisora, further than AJ. He did really well, and he's played himself back into that division. But when there was 2 standing counts, the second one, he was counted out. That first count, when he was floored, I think in like the 3rd or the 4th round, he went up very, very late, and I thought, blooming heck, you just made that like he was up on 9. Bearing in mind what we've got here and what's at stake, I honestly think Dubois was too slow getting up. Had he got up on a 7 or the 8 and not the 9, I think that fight would have carried on. And then he's still got another 3 rounds to go for it. And maybe those last 3 rounds sharpen the mind. But regardless of all of that, and regardless of the fantastic shot that Usyk did, and Usyk absolutely outboxed him, which we're not surprised with, but fundamentally, it comes down to 2 simple things. One, the fight, that blow was legitimate and there should have been a count. But more importantly, it was not capitalised on, because had that been capitalised on, whatever travesty, robbery, yes or no, or fairness would have happened, you've still beaten him because you followed up and you've got the TKO further along.
The advantage wasn't taken, and whether he's going to get that opportunity again, Simon, that's the thing.
Joe, he's not going to get an opportunity again. And also, the other thing, it's a mandatory. Look, Usyk is a dangerous, dangerous fighter. Fantastic fighter. One of the best. But at that mandatory, Dubois can then shut the door on him, because there ain't going to be no rematch, contractual, and then you've got to go back to that whole thing, get it agreed. And then Dubois can then concentrate and do what he wants to do and own the narrative and own the agenda. And this is why I think it's really, really disappointing, because it guts me to say it. Great performance. You've really played yourself back in the future, but it's a missed opportunity.
Does Frank, Frank even said in the ring afterwards, I know he said a few words that possibly he shouldn't have said sometimes in the heat of the moment, when he said, what your country's going through, you're going through. Sometimes you don't go down that road, but you kind of just, I think he was just trying to get to where he wanted to get to, and emotions run high, don't they? Don Charles was clearly upset. The game plan was there and the game plan was executed, but obviously no count, but because it was all about working the body in the training camp. But do Frank and Daniel go to the board which a lot of people will say yes. They've even said that's what they want to do. Do they get this decision for a rematch, though, Simon, do you think?
I think you've got to. I think, look, let's be honest here. There is clear, valid grounds for an appeal. Whether or not that appeal gets processed and is granted, that's up to those sporting bodies. But for me, I think you've got an absolute categoric argument.
You've got to try, haven't you?
It's not. I don't even think it's a question of trying, Joel. I think it's a question of it absolutely fits the portfolio for an appeal to be looked into. And I'll be honest with you, Usyk's got a thing as well. I know he was like dancing in the ring and doing it afterwards, and it was a victory. But let's be honest, it really shouldn't have been that way. Do you know what I mean? Had it been, and look, mistakes happen, they do. But this for me was so far in that zone of hang on. Is the fight credible? As in, is the outcome credible? Because is this a real miscarriage of justice, if you like? He was robbed. As far as I'm concerned, it's
a major turning point. But as I say, the biggest turning point for me was that Dubois did not go for the jugular. Chris, it was Usyk's masterclass for me. Dubois only won one round. The controversial round, Dubois should have thrown kitchen sink. 100%. Dubois hasn't really fought a top 15 opponent till Usyk and Joyce. The start of their careers, Dubois must learn from this. He's got a decade. And when they were saying, when you look at the other fighters, AJ, Wilder, Fury, there's a lot, isn't there? Usyk, they're all ticking on now. The age is ticking on, and it's going quick. When you also get to that level and you say you have 1-2 fights a year, time flies. So Daniel is in a fantastic position. He genuinely is to come again, and I think he will come again. But whether it's when these guys are around is a different thing. But Dubois showed last night he wasn't there yet in terms of world level mentality. Otherwise, he would have thrown the kitchen sink. I think that's the thing. It's opportunity missed, like we say. Before the fight, I questioned Dubois whether he could hurt Usyk. Body shocked to see he did. I was shouting, throw the kitchen sink. I think this is the thing. We got several coming in, Simon. But surely if you think Usyk lost, you're anti-British. Remember the special relationship we have with Ukraine. Boxing is politics, American gangster.
I think at the end of this, let's be completely honest. Usyk won the fight, was clearly the better boxer, and if we're all kind of honest, Dubois would struggle to beat him on points. Most boxers, bar Fury, will struggle. So you've got to go for that KO. At the end of the day here, you've got a puncher's chance. And do you know what? As far as I'm concerned, that puncher's chance happened. It's that simple. But it was missed. And then he showed his experience. And do you know what, though? You have to watch that fight. The stuff Usyk was doing was fantastic. The speed of his jabs was incredible.
I think it's just output, Simon. You can't compete with him. Output.
Well, I agree. And also the other thing as well that you've got to realise here, Joel, was that Usyk as well was was bringing him round, onto the left, onto the right to really negate Dubois. And on top of that as well, the way how Usyk is taking this, he's game changing this division because he's making heavyweights fight 100% of the time, and they cannot have that rest break that they would normally do against another heavyweight. And it's it's actually learning a new way to fight at this level. But for me, when he gets hit, and he's had hit in
Sorry, Simon, lost you there a bit, mate. I'll just crack on with the comments that are coming in. With Simon's just lost his connection for a second. JAM84, no bloody way that they win the appeal. Warren and Dubois, bunch of bleeding simple Herberts. I think that's just how it is at the moment. Dubois did well with what he has. And I think Is he limited at the moment? And I think that showed in the inexperience, to be perfectly honest. But we shall see. Is there going to be a rematch? Let me know in the comments, people. All sorts happening. There's going to be so much more to this. We will see what happens next afternoon. Yeah, let us know in the comments how you're seeing this one. It's going to be an interesting one. Chris, Usyk makes all heavyweights work, which natural heavyweights don't like, which by being intriguing to see how Fury copes with Usyk's speed and movement. Leaving on this one, we want Fury versus Usyk. We all do, mate. We all do. But until then, let us know in the comments your thoughts on this one. This one could drag on. They're obviously going to go and appeal it. Let's see what happens next. But until then, Simon, thank you very much for coming on. I know your phone died, but we will see you soon. Until then, Paul Duffy. Dubois gave up on the knee again. Overwhelmed by class. Until then, have some of this. Don't forget to subscribe.